You like my 70 groove, baby?
Right?
How are you today?
I am well. How are you, my friend?
Good. Same. Super excited. We are working on the audiobook for volume one, right? Working on sending volume two of Women Connected in Wisdom to the typesetter. And I don't think I could be more excited about people hearing the new stories, people hearing the first volume for the first time because they didn't have time to read the book, you know? So,
Right?
yeah, excited about more stories getting out. That's where I'm at.
Right? I was having a conversation with somebody last week about living in our purpose,
Yeah.
right? About how when things get tough, because this summer for a lot of people has been tough. We've talked about it on the podcast, we've talked about
Yes.
it with guests. And, it doesn't feel like things have eased up this year. It
Hmm.
feels like things have gotten more intense.
Hmm.
And I was thinking about like all our deadlines and and what are we on today? Are we 124?
24.
We're on
Yes.
episode 124. So, all the work that happens behind the scenes
Yeah.
and it just hits different. Oh, I want to change that language. That's
Hmm.
kind of some violent language.
Okay.
It lands different
Yeah.
when we're in purpose,
Mhm.
right? It lands different when we're uplifting voices. Like, you and I always tend to go back to like what's our values, what's our
Yeah.
mission with this podcast, with the book, with the
Right.
community, and that uplifting of women's voices and supporting each other and having resources for each other, right? Like
Yes.
all of that. Yeah, it just lands differently.
Yeah.
So,
And today we're talking about social wellness, right? And it reminds me of our conversation we were having at the Shalo Glow event this past weekend about asking for help. And
mm,
when I think about women connected in wisdom and our stories, it's the asking for help and actually getting action steps and feedback and positive
mhm,
feedback. Like, hey, one,
mhm.
you're doing a great job, right? Two, I know somebody who can help you. Like that feels amazing when you feel like you've been under all this pressure or whatever is going on in life
Mhm.
and you just need to be led to the right place. So, yes, I hear you on the in purpose. I love what we do.
Right? So, should we do our official introduction and kick
Do
off
it.
and get episode 124 rocking and rolling?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's
Hi,
do it.
ladies. I am Shannon Mitchell, a Black millennial entrepreneur and Amazon bestselling author, the founder of Shalo Glow, an all natural handmade personal products company that helps women with dry skin glow from head to toe. I'm a champion for your self care, business care, and intentional wellness.
Hey, y'all, I'm Christine Gautreaux, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, coach, Amazon bestselling author with a lot of other amazing women, and dancing social worker who helps you upgrade yourself and community care.
Yes, together we are a podcast rooted in the 8 dimensions of wellness and the co founders of Women Connected in Wisdom Community.
And we like to get together every week with expert guests for intentional conversations about how to be wise in business and life. And how do we do this? How do we
Oof.
do
Yes, especially talking
it?
about social wellness, right? Because the
Mhm,
feedback we got from the first cohort of authors was, I had such a good time, right? Melody said last week she had so much fun doing the book with us, thinking about Coach Co and how she said this group of women worked so well together, and
mhm,
how, again, socially, it's not like that. It's usually competition or pettiness. And here we are intentional on the collaboration, intentional on the connectedness and just operating from a healthy place in an authentic place. So that's what's been top of mind for me when I think about social wellness. What about for you?
mm. Well, what's been top of mind is, as you know, and our listeners knows, I've been doing a lot of caregiving recently.
Yeah.
And, at first I think, well, that doesn't really go under social wellness, but it
Mm.
really does when you think about connections because at first I'm thinking, well, my social wellness is a little out of balance because I haven't when I think social wellness, I think play. And I
Okay.
know it's more than that,
Hmm.
right? And when
Hmm.
we read the definition in a minute for our listeners, but when I really think about social to me, because I'm an extrovert and I love to connect with people and I love interacting. And so I think play. And
Hmm.
so I think, oh, I haven't gotten to play much as far as with my friends and just some downtime and things like that. So I think, oh, I'm a little out of balance on that. But it's different in every season,
Right.
right? And so yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna read the definition because I wanna talk about it a little more after I read the definition.
Let's do
So
it.
y'all, today we're talking about social wellness. And social wellness is the ability to nurture ourselves, others, and our relationships with healthy boundaries. It includes, and we always put this in quotes, balancing the other seven dimensions of wellness and actively participating as an interdependent being in the web of life.
Yes. And for me, what sticks out this week is the ability to nurture ourselves. I was telling the ladies this past weekend, I saw this video on Instagram, right? And it was talking about saying, I love you in the mirror. I said, ooh, do I do that? We talk about the Goldie saying, yes, it's going to be a great day, right? All those things intentionally. But did you tell Shannon? When's the last time you told Shannon, like, I love you? Like, really? Like, you tell
Mm.
other people, you know? And so I was in the mirror doing some self-care. I told them, I'll tell the listeners, I was tweezing my chin, okay? And I'm in the mirror and I hit the eye. I hit my eye in the mirror. I said, so you gonna tell yourself that you love yourself? And I kind of hesitated. And on this Instagram post, she was saying how difficult it was for people. So I said, is it difficult for you to tell yourself you love you? You know that I love you.
Mm.
So I did it and I've started doing it. And for me, that's huge on how I balance my social wellness, right? It has to
Mm.
be me making sure I'm okay first. Did I pour into me? Because I am known, I with myself, to overpour,
Mhm.
right? To give to other people what was supposed to be mine and to give my power away in that way. So me making sure I tell myself I love myself before I tell my partner, before I tell my dad in the morning. We do a great job at texting in the morning, right? But to have that for myself before I pour out has been big. Especially you talked about being um an extrovert. I'm actually right
Mhm.
in the middle, so
Yeah.
love being an extrovert, love, that recharges my battery to be
Mhm.
socially around people and participating. And sometimes it needs to be me by myself and not talking to the hundreds of thousands of people that I'm used to working with, right? And recharging and refilling from that self-care.
I would agree. I'm an ambivert too. I lean
Yes.
more towards an ambivert than an extrovert, but,
Okay.
I love people do refuel me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Because
they
a
do.
lot of times in the true definition of an introvert, people drain you.
Hmm.
And there are times people can drain me, and
Yes,
that's
they have.
also one of my clues to know that, oh, I'm low on the self-care bucket, right?
Or maybe it's that person.
Well, it
But
could be because
yeah.
I do think there's some energy vampires out there that, when we always talk about an interplay, and when I'm coaching folks about noticing our body wisdom, right? And if you notice, like when you're around people, do they drain you or do they feed you?
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be where you are, and sometimes you're right, it can be that person that if every
Yes.
time you're with them you leave depleted, then
Hmm.
that's probably a check-in around your
Hmm.
social wellness is how's that going with them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
But I
love
love
that.
the balance of it in the season. I think you're
Mhm,
spot on. And that's what I had to realize. Social situations helped me realize that I was too black and white, right? If
mhm,
this was the rule, then that's how I always um operated. But there is difference depending on the context of the situation. And I think that's important to keep
right.
front of mind.
Well, today with our expert guest, we're going to talk about social wellness in regards to the workplace. Awesome. Which I'm
Yes.
really excited about because, you think about social wellness and, like, I immediately said it's about having fun with my friends,
Yes.
but I'm an entrepreneur and, like, I do have work friends, but
Hmm.
they're my friends, like,
Yeah.
and then this whole thing about, how some people really all their friends are their work friends
Hmm.
because that's what they do,
Hmm.
right? They don't have time outside of work. So I'm
Hmm.
interested about the weaving of that, about social wellness and work, and when we're in transitions in our
Mm,
lives, in our careers, and things like that.
that's
So,
huge. Yeah, let's talk about it.
are you ready to introduce our guest?
Let's do it.
All
Yes.
right.
So this week we are talking to Camlin Pham, and Cam Pham is a talent developer, educator, and creative junkie from Southern California. She's on a personal and professional journey to help you with yours. Today, she has helped thousands of early career talent navigate their careers, land internships, career opportunities, and develop their identity and brand. Her goal is to help level the playing field for all talent to succeed, regardless of their social capital or background, and inspire the next generation of professionals to design the career and life harmony of their dreams. Welcome to the
Mm.
stage, Cam Pham.
Hi, y'all. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We are so delighted to have this conversation with you.
Yes. Yes, I was, and so we're going to talk a little bit about LinkedIn, right? But when I first saw your profile on LinkedIn and your story of how you decided to switch your name back to Cam Pham, I was like, absolutely, we have to have her on the podcast and share that important journey because I have a lot of friends from around the world, and that's always a topic of discussion, So, welcome to our social wellness episode.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here and very grateful for the opportunity and platform to be able to share my story and hopefully inspire at least one other person to embrace their authentic selves.
Yes.
So, I I was an immigrant. I was born in Vietnam, and I came a little bit after my fifth birthday and landed in Anaheim, California. And so part of my journey in my early journey in the United States, it was really difficult, as you can imagine, for immigrants. I didn't speak English. I came right after my fifth birthday, and so I started school not knowing English. And as you might know what it feels like when you're traveling to a different country and you kind of feel that culture shock, like you don't really know the language, you don't recognize these landmarks or buildings, or these people look different from you. I experienced that being here in the States, but on a much bigger scale because this was my new home now. And so there was a part of me that felt really overwhelmed and at the same time um, worried about navigating this new space. And of course I was really young, but now looking back I think that there were some moments in my early uh, pivotal years where I didn't feel included. I didn't feel like I belong. I didn't feel like I could connect with others because my English was so bad. And so, yeah, that's how, that's sort of what has brought me to be here today and talking with you all about helping others, embracing themselves, and being able to find the beauty in all the things that make them different.
Absolutely. Yes, differences are celebrated. And that was one of my things growing up, having the opportunity to study with students from around the world. I would get so upset when I would look at people with great character, and because they pronounce a word differently than you're going to make their day worse. Just didn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense.
Mhm.
Um, and so I'm super excited again, to share your story. And I would love to go deeper on why you decided to have an English name, right? And how that helped you. Because it's not about shame if this is what is works better for you to navigate the context of the situation that you're in, like you're talking about, all these details. If you need to use this name, then okay. And what brought you to using that name and how did it help?
Yeah, so I grew up being bullied. I had, Cam Lynn as a name, and nowadays we're pretty open to culture and immigrants and people with ethnic names, but I feel like we have worked a lot to get to where we are today. And so back then, kids are probably still ruthless now, but even more ruthless because I truly feel like social media this opened up people's minds and ideas about culture and name and celebration of differences. But unfortunately, I grew up without social media. And so my name was very odd to a lot of my classmates. They didn't recognize it, they couldn't pronounce it, it looked different. And even with my teachers, too, the first day of school, oh my gosh, I would dread it so much reading on the roll call and butchering my name. And so it was really tough. And then every time the teacher would be out and there would be a substitute teacher, here we go again. And so it was really difficult just even before somebody meets me, they see my name and they already have a perception of me. And so with my peers, it was really difficult feeling like I was a part of the circle a lot of the times because my English was broken, or maybe there were some cultural differences that I just didn't get, I didn't understand. And I still joke about it today. Sometimes people joke about like 80s music or 80s, 90s pop culture, and I don't understand it.
I'm right there with
um,
you. I was watching, This Is Pop yesterday on Netflix, and I have to, like, catch up because I say I was at work. I was out cutting somebody's yard. I was not in everything. I'm with
yeah.
you.
Yeah. So I didn't understand a lot of the cultural nuances of what it meant to be American.
Yes.
And so then just feeling like an alien, even though at that point I'd been living in the United States for a few years now, for most of my life. Then at that point,
Mhm.
but the kids, they would make nicknames out of it. They would just make me hate my name, and every
Yeah.
time I heard it, it did not bring a
Joy.
positive feeling. Yeah, exactly, joy.
Right.
I felt ashamed of that name. I felt like it made me explicitly stand out as a non-American.
I hear
Um,
what you're saying.
yeah, and so when my family became citizens in fifth grade, I believe it was a summer after my fifth grade, and we had the chance to change our names, you bet I hopped on that. I took that opportunity. I
Right.
thought it was my moment to finally be free, and we can reflect a little bit more on that, on what free meant. But um, I I thought it was my opportunity to finally get rid of this identity, erase it. Nobody's gonna remember that I was ever Camlin, and then I was going to be able to be a new person, an American, and now Katie. So that's sort of the name that I changed it to.
Mm. First of all, can we just pause and take a deep breath, Cam, for that sweet little 5-year-old who just, mm, my nibblings turn 4 next week. These are the loves of my life, right? And I just think about their age, and I think about your age, and I think about that journey, and whoo. So I just want to send her some love,
Mhm.
and that she survived and thrived
Yeah.
and is here talking with us today, because that's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's a really big deal.
I thought about that too. Yeah, after I made that post on LinkedIn where I was reintroducing myself, and Shannon, that's the post that you saw. I
Yes.
thought to myself, gosh, I want to hug baby Cam so bad. I want to travel back in time and just give her a tight hug and just say, guess what? One day you're going to come back to this, and you're going to feel so empowered by your name and proud of your name, and you're going to love it, and you're going to think it's beautiful. And I think that, yeah, when I think about that, it just evokes such deep emotions for me.
Yeah. So can we talk about that? So Cam went to Kim, and then when did Kim go back to Cam? What was
It was
that?
Katie.
Katie,
Katie,
excuse me.
Katie,
Katie.
Thank you for
yeah.
That's
correcting
okay.
me,
No
Christine.
worries. No
Katie.
worries.
Yeah, so Cam went to Katie, and then Katie went to Cam. What was it like for you to make that official decision?
I love the name Kim. It's my closest and bestest cousin's name. So I love that you thought I was Kim.
Shout out to cousin Kim.
I Yeah, it was. So you're talking about the moment when I sort of transitioned to
Back,
Katie,
yes.
right? Okay.
Well, if you wanna share there,
Yeah.
I was asking about when you decided to come back
Hmm.
to Cam.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whichever you wanna share more. This is your story.
Yeah. I so I can start earlier at the beginning. So when I transitioned from Camlin to Katie, it I felt like I was like a phony. I was like, oh my god, I hope my friends don't remember that I was Camlin last summer. I hope that they forgot that a couple months ago I went by Camlin.
Right.
But it was almost like I didn't talk to them about it at all.
Mhm.
We went away for summer. We came
Yeah.
back to school. And then my sixth grade teacher read off roll call, calling me Katie. And all my
Yes.
friends were like, what? Like, who's Katie here? And so I didn't talk to any of them at all. And I think I was just so ashamed of that transition that I didn't want people to know, which is so silly because obviously I'm changing my name, but I
Right.
think I was so ashamed of that I didn't want to talk about it. I just hope that they would just call me Katie here on forward and don't ask any questions.
Mhm.
And so that transition for my friends was a little difficult because they've been so used to calling me Camlin, and then the next thing you know, they're calling me Katie. And some folks even made fun of me for it. You know, some folks were
Mhm.
like, "Oh, you changed your name, like you don't like your Vietnamese name anymore. You're like trying to be American now." So there's some
Mhm.
kids were really mean about it.
Yeah.
But as soon as I went into middle school and high school and then college, it has sort of been erased. And at that point, only a select small number of friends who had known me from elementary school still recalled that I was Camlin. But
I understand.
by the time that I was, hit going through all of those stages, Camlin had been pretty much buried and, didn't really exist anymore. However, one person who did keep it alive was Kim. And so that's why I said I love the name Kim,
Wow.
just because I love her so much. But
Yeah.
she continued to call me Camlin. Of course, in front of family only. In front of friends, she would call me Katie. But she has kept it alive, and she just is such a loving person. And I think that shaped the way that I viewed my name, because every time she would say my name, it was just so supportive out of love, like positive energy. And so she helped me rewire the way that I viewed my name. And so um, she was one of the only people that called me Camlin.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And let's take a second, because we talk about community mirroring your greatness back to you, right? And again, shout out to cousin Kim, like that's huge. That's so important, thinking about people who have similar stories is your story. If they didn't have that, you know what I mean? Like what happens to that person? So that's
Yeah.
amazing. And I'm glad that you had somebody to be able to pour love back into the name after everything that you had went through with it.
Yeah, and I think that's just one of those examples where kindness and love can do so much to, a person. Like even when you don't think that it's a big deal, or maybe you don't realize the impact at that moment, everything that you do, all of the ways that you treat another person can really um, alter the course of their life. I mean, not to be dramatic, but
Let's
I
be dramatic. Let's be super
Right?
dramatic
We're allowed to be
because
dramatic. Absolutely.
people are not here anymore. You know what I mean? Like big things happen when you treat people like this, and it's
Hmm.
not to be taken lightly. And like you said, online and social media, a lot of these things can exponentiate them when the tools are used in hurtful ways. So I think we make it big for the people who have been hugely impacted by the way that they've been treated.
yes, I love that.
I think
Yeah.
this, if y'all are okay if I shift just a little bit, what's bubbling up for me as I think about this and I think about your
Yes.
story and I think about your name. And when we talk about social wellness with work and how important names really are, and the culture of work and making sure that we treat our colleagues with kindness and compassion and we get their names right
Yes.
and we don't shorten their names or we don't nickname them or we
No.
don't, you know, say that we have a hard time pronouncing their name, that we just practice it and try
Work
it
through
and
it.
right. And I do think, Kim, what you said that, social media has helped us. And then
Mm,
I also think that there's still a lot of ignorance out there
mhm.
and people, especially white people, like think that, oh, they don't have to learn new names or they don't. And it's like, come on, y'all. Like our names are important.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah.
So I would love to hear, I guess, Christine, my question is, where specifically should we take that? For me, that comment takes me a lot of different places, right?
right.
How should we make it more specific?
Well, I'm just thinking with Cam's expertise as
Yes.
far as helping people in the workforce as a
Mhm.
career coach, as a I mean, Cam, you can take it where you want to go because we titled this show How to Be a Gold Digger because first of all, I love that. And
Yes.
you tickled me so much on your LinkedIn that it says that. And we're always talking about goals, and it
Yeah, we
just
are.
made me giggle and light up.
Mhm.
So we can talk about social wellness in the workplace. Like, what do you see as a career coach? Like,
Mhm.
what are, I guess here's the way I want to ask it.
Yeah.
What are things that folks can do to be resilient in the workforce? Especially if they're struggling with things like this, that if they've got colleagues that are disrespectful, or and their option is not to just leave, right? Or what are the steps? Boy, these are a lot of questions, but it's all bubbling up because I was also thinking, what are the steps, like hiring somebody like you as a career coach to help them get out of a bad situation, to get into a better one? Like, I think we could take it all kinds of places.
Great questions.
Yeah, and I still have your question in mind, Shannon, about transitioning from Katie to Cam,
No
and
problem.
I'm going to try to touch on all of these points as well as the ones that Christine just shared, because I think that's super important, practicing resiliency not only in your personal life but in your professional life as well.
Yes.
Um, so I work with a lot of folks who have ethnic names. I work with a lot of folks who are international, and one of the a very common research that was conducted was that resumes with American sounding names were more likely to be selected for an interview or a job versus resumes with ethnic names. And I believe the research also exists to share that resumes with African American names were less likely to be selected than resumes with white names.
Right.
And so we know that this exists. And so let's, put it in the spotlight that this is not anything that we are hiding. And so a lot of the folks I work with struggle with this because they know people are
Oh, I think we
Mm.
lost her for a second.
Okay. Let's see.
We'll give her a second. Maybe
Yeah.
having a tech issue. Oh, let's take a deep breath while we wait on her. Ooh, it's the juicy part
I
too,
know.
y'all.
I
It's
know.
the juicy part. So,
This is
w
good.
right?
Let's see.
Right,
Let's see if
talking
she comes
about
back on. And to answer your question, what I would do, Christine, if what I would advise if I was a manager and somebody on my team came to me about this person is saying something about my name and they don't know what to say, right?
Mhm,
For me, is like anything else, any other um, difficulty that you might have to communicate through with somebody, right? Like, hey, I heard you call me Shannon. I prefer to be called Shannon. It
mhm,
happens. What if you want to include understanding, or if you just want to be
mhm,
straight to it? This is what I prefer to be called. I think as long as you come to people with, um, professionalism and the openness to have a conversation and meet them, then that gives them the opportunity to see how they're going to respond. If somebody responds in an unhealthy way or a hurtful way, that's when I would send an email and continue communicating up the chain if I had to. Or if you don't want to do that, maybe document it if it's really important to you and you feel like it's really hurtful. Um,
mhm.
but just like anything else, when you're teaching people how to treat you, it's that open communication and um, reiterating sometimes what you want.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with you. So, I didn't have any issues with this until I got married and I
Mm,
took my husband's name. And, I had a very American name, an easy name
right.
until I got married.
Right.
And then, now I got a 9-letter name, and, but I always have the humor of it because it's my last name is Gotro and
Mhm.
it's spelled Gautreaux. So
Yes.
if you're from Louisiana, you know how to pronounce it. If you're from Texas, you might know how to pronounce it,
Right.
right? So when I moved to Georgia, it cracked me up because I could always tell when a salesperson was on the call. And
Mhm.
sometimes they would butcher the name so bad, I could honestly say, "Oh, I'm sorry that person doesn't live here." So
Mm.
here she comes.
Hey,
Oh,
Camlin.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what
It's
happened.
okay. It's
You
okay.
know, tech happens.
Yeah, it
And
is.
we were saying that you were at a juicy part too,
Yes, you
so
were.
no worries.
We can jump right back in, no problem.
Oh, and I think she may have frozen again. It may be her current. Oh,
Oh,
there you
it's
are,
back.
Cam.
Oh no. Okay, so I see it is a little laggy. Can you hear me now? Can you see
Yes,
me?
and you're
Okay,
moving, everything
awesome.
is fine.
I'm
And
moving,
we were
grooving.
at right? Do you remember where we were, or you want a refresher?
Yes. Okay. So
We were
with
at
the folks that we work with,
workplace.
right?
Yep,
Yeah.
workplace
So
names,
their
and
names.
then yep,
Hmm.
and then the transition
Yeah.
back.
And so because of that, a lot of folks want to change their names to an American name so they don't get stigmatized for, for who they are. And so I have so many of these conversations with folks. And of
Wow.
course, not every conversation is me trying to change their mind because at that point I'd still been Katie. But it's a lot of conversations revolving around identity and embracing our names or not, and wanting to feel accepted and wanting to be seen. And so having these conversations, I don't believe at the moment made me immediately think about, oh my gosh, I changed my name. I went through this process that they are trying to go through. And
Mm,
I feel the same way. But having so many of these conversations, I think that it just stayed in the back of my mind. And I don't think that it immediately made me want to change my name, but I think that over time I started thinking about it more. And as I was helping people through their transitions from, education to entering the workforce, a
yes.
lot of these conversations revolved around those, finding yourself, embracing who you are, bringing your authentic selves to the workplace. And then, so in my act of counseling others, they counseled me in return. And I realized maybe it's the right time, it's a good time for me to come back to Camlin. And I think that I can help a lot more people by being Camlin because that's truly who I am.
I hear you.
I love that.
Yeah. And I know that earlier you were asking, how can folks be resilient in the workplace?
Mhm.
And I think it all starts with being your authentic selves, right? If you are being who you are, if you're bringing your true selves, then you don't necessarily feel like you have to hide anything or feeling like you have to work harder to be accepted. And I think that in that act, you are being resilient, right? Um, you're so strong that you're holding out against these perceptions of who you should be. What does it mean to be a professional person, or the way that you should speak, or all of those things. And so, I think that one of the best tips for being resilient in the workplace is just bring your authentic selves to your work, in the office or at home if you're working remotely.
Right? And what I had shared is that let's say there is a situation, right, where my name is Shannon and somebody's saying Shannon or saying it differently. I would just have the conversation. If it bothered me and I felt like I needed to bring it to that person professionally, and say, hey, you said Shannon, but I prefer to be called Shannon. I would like it if that's how I was addressed from here on out, like however you feel like it makes sense for you to say it. You want to throw some understanding on there. I get it might be difficult, but this is how you pronounce it. Okay. If not, okay. And then I said, if you felt like it wasn't met appropriately and there was a hurtful conversation from that, then maybe to send a follow-up email and send it up. Or if you don't want to send it up, the chain of communication in the organization that you're in, maybe just document it so that you for yourself have stuff written down. I think that sometimes when I write stuff down, it gets it out of my head. And that in situations professionally where I've had a list of conversations with people, and then later on it was like, well, not really. Somebody might have tried to sweep stuff under the rug. I wish I would have had that log of, no, this absolutely was has been going on for a while. What do you think about that advice with your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always great to keep written documentation of things because you never know if it, I mean, hopefully it doesn't escalate, but if it does, you have, some written documentation that you have been treated this way, you've
Yeah.
been harassed, or maybe, be put in uncomfortable situations, maybe even unsafe situations.
Hmm.
And so I think it is important for that. But I would like to think that people are good. I mean,
Yeah.
we're all inherently good, and that people want to learn. And so I have had people butcher my name, but I know that maybe they've never met anybody named Camlin, or maybe
Right.
they've never heard of that name, and so
Right.
it's almost like learning a word for the first time. Maybe you pronounce it a little weird the first time,
Yeah.
but after some practice, you get better at it. And granted, Shannon is a pretty common name, so
It is, right? Shannon Beverly Mitchell was really easy for people to say. And it is different. We wouldn't even call it an African American name, with the GPA and the credentials, they call Shannon, they're not expecting it to be me in the room, So I hear what you're saying.
yeah. And so, but who knows? Like maybe this individual met a Shannon,
Right.
and Shannon said, "Oh, my name is Shannon, not Shannon."
Right. Exactly.
So
Exactly.
who knows? But I think just giving people compassion and
Yeah.
just grace, and and if you continuously give that to them and they still return with negativity or unwillingness
Hmm.
to learn how to pronounce their name right, then
That's
snip
them.
snip.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't need to be a
Yeah.
part of your circle, and so
Right.
that's it.
And what I know is that a lot of people feel guilty for being bad at names, right? Even if they pronounce it correctly, they're like, I'm not going to remember. I'm horrible at names. That's most people who I meet, and we have conversations about names, right? So maybe it's some of that. Maybe it is the pronunciation and the embarrassment of getting somebody's name wrong. It's this false facade of confidence. You're just going to change it to something else. But I hear what you're saying. And I can
Yeah.
tell you that in situations where I feel like somebody might look at me professionally a certain way and undervalue or underestimate what I can bring to the table. It is exactly what you're saying. Okay, this is what you think, and I see the situation. This is how I operate though when I'm in a role. And then that speaks for itself, whether it's shift reviews or as managers, we had things where the staff would give feedback, the highest level of professionalism in the restaurant can't be disputed. It doesn't matter what the name is, that speaks for itself. And that's something that you can go on and talk about at interviews and bring to other teams and use as transferable skills. So I love the work that you do with the young professionals.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like if you just are not sure how to pronounce somebody's name, just ask them. Like
Yes,
every time
exactly.
I meet somebody new, or I'm coaching somebody new, and I don't know how to pronounce their name, I don't even try. I just ask them,
Hmm.
"Can you teach me how to say your name?"
Beautiful.
And just a question like that, I feel like is that's it. That's all it takes. And they can teach you how to pronounce their name, and maybe you learn how to, you learn something new. You learn how to put
Yes.
some letters together.
Yeah. And not just that the buy-in is important, right? That, oh, getting this person on your team, but seriously, the genuine buy-in from your teammate, right? The camaraderie that builds on the staff. I feel like it changes things from day to night when this person knows that you're going to have consideration for them, you're going to listen to what they're saying, you want to make sure that they're comfortable, and that everybody else has what they need to take care of this person. So I love that question.
Kim, I have a question for you, and she may have frozen again. So we're going to give her just a second, see if she's with us. I wanted to know, Shannon, when she comes back on, I want for our listeners, if she makes it back, that we to describe what a career coach is. And because I don't know, um, here she comes. So, Cam, I was just saying to Shannon when you made it back that I want you to describe for our listeners what a career coach is, because
Mhm.
we have listeners from teenagers all the way into their 80s. And some people may not know, or they may have been out of the workforce for a while, or maybe they haven't entered the workforce yet. What does a career coach do, and how do you help folks?
Yeah, so a career coach can help you every step of your career journey, anywhere from understanding who you are and the work that you want to do, or the impact or that you want to make, the purpose that you have, or to working on your resume, your cover letter, LinkedIn profile updates, networking, being able to negotiate salary, or even working on an exit plan to another job, making career pivots. Honestly, anywhere along that journey, a career coach can really help you, especially during the early stages of your career development, like for students.
I love that, Cam. I
Yeah.
love the work you do, and I love the work with the students coming out, because it's a big deal nowadays. Like, I am definitely older than both of y'all, and it just didn't feel as big of a deal, I think, when
Mhm.
we were first coming out. Of course, I was kind of in a small town, and so like you still did things like went in person to turn in your resume and had an in-person conversation.
Mhm.
Whereas now, you have to get through all the social media gates and all the technology gates in order to even get invited to that call, to then the conversation, to then. So I think, I mean, of course, I'm a huge fan of coaches anyways, and that we don't have to do this by ourselves,
Right.
that we can have the help and the support we need along the way. And yeah, thank you for doing that.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you say that too, Christine. What comes up for me is the way it used to be organized. There used to be pension plans and things where the company that you were working for decades took care of your retirement. They realized not sustainable. I'm not going to continue as a company to pay for everybody that's ever been on the list, for their retirement. That's a lot. It's like the presidencies. And so they decided to change the model. And so it is different. And I was at TEDx, and it reminded me when one of the speakers were speaking about having young coaches and talking to millennials, and the benefit of um, knowing that people at every step of the way can help you, right? Because as things change, before, even if you're a big company, after COVID and nobody's in this huge building anymore, all of the standard operating procedures are going online, and now this setup of the business is different. Knowing who to talk to at that point is really important. So, Cam, I love that you help people through all of it, because even if it's their name, or just knowing how to show up authentically at work, knowing how their passions tie into what they want to do and who to network with, hey, go be on this nonprofit board because this is your business. To be really intentional about that, I think is great.
Yeah, and I feel like especially nowadays with Gen Z, they no longer feel the same way that boomers or millennials feel. I think that our idea of a balanced work and life has really shifted from generation to generation, and Gen Z definitely is very wild, free, and just they don't feel the need to commit to an employer for 10 plus, 30 plus years. They don't feel the need to sign up for a pension, and so I think that the way that work has shifted has really changed from what we all experience as millennials or to Gen Z. And so I think it is really important for young coaches like myself to be in this game, because we understand this generation. We're much more connected to this generation. Um, I didn't grow up with a cell phone or internet, but at least I had internet for the majority of my life and
Right.
understand the role of social media, or a digital branding. And
Mhm.
so there are a lot of ways that I've connected with the early talent demographics. But uh, I have these conversations with folks who are 50, who are 40, and there's a lot of similarities between what we all feel. A lot of the times, there's the students that I work with, they are really stressed on what career to pick for the rest of their lives, or they don't know what career to choose, and there's so much pressure on choosing the perfect career. And it's so funny because I would talk to people who are like 45, 50, and they still have the same question.
Yes. Yes, and I found the same thing. We've been talking about the book in the books, in the working with the authors for Women Connected in Wisdom and Connected in Wisdom Press, whether they're in their 30s, because before Cam Lam, I was the youngest one, right? So I was in my 20s. I had the question. Again, authors to their 80s, and everybody's like, how do I fit? Does my story fit into wellness? Should I be in the book? And we're like, of course you should be included. Yes, you fit into wellness. Yes, you should share your story. And it is interesting how we would think before those conversations that it would be different, that it might be different. I feel like when I was raised, I was taught that adults always knew what they wanted, what was going on. So to get there and to still have the same questions and some of the same anxieties and the same hesitations is interesting.
They were totally faking it,
They were,
just so
and I
you
knew
know.
it. I said, "No." Little Shannon was like, "No, this not making sense. You can't just tell me
Right?
this because I'm a little kid. I'm not stupid though." You
Right?
know?
You probably
Yeah,
called them on it, didn't you? I can
I might
totally see
have.
you being like, "Well, what
I
here's
did
what
actually. I
here's
did.
what my vision is." Not necessarily calling them, but just
Mhm.
asking like 20 follow-up, very intense follow-up questions to
No, I
really
got
get
you.
to the root core of
I have an
something.
example. I have an example, and this is like Shannon. This is like teenage Shannon. This is not about names, but we had just moved to this house, and when we talk about transitions, Camlin, I went through a lot of transitions growing up too, right? So new house, and my dad was working on me doing the dishes, and he's like, "Shannon, these dishes have been here for weeks." I said, "Dad, we haven't lived here for weeks. You can act like roaches are gonna come. It's fine. They're not gonna come. The house is clean. The dishes are dirty. I'll clean the dishes. Okay, no problem." Um, but yeah, I did push back, Christine. I guess I've always been like that. Mm-mm. You're not
I
just gonna make me
love
think
it.
something.
I
Yeah,
love it.
And I think
yeah,
that's the most beautiful thing is that, we're all still trying to figure it out no matter what stage we're at. And
yes,
that's why it's so important for us to talk to younger generations, younger kids, any nibblings that you have
yes,
about career. And I think that it's never too soon to talk about this because kids need
mhm,
to be introduced to all the different types of careers that exist out there. As as a Vietnamese immigrant and Asian
yes,
American, I come from a culture that where my parents, my mom only wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer, engineer, or anything of those things. And it's very common for the API community to grow up feeling like this is all the parents wanted them to do. And so I believe it's so important that we spread awareness on the different type of careers, not just so that they can grow up having limitless um, ideas on what they could do, but also so that when they become adults, they don't feel like, oh, I didn't know I could do that, or oh, I
right,
didn't realize that job existed, I would have started sooner.
right,
Yeah, and so I think that it's all so important for us to start having these conversations with younger kids, and it doesn't have to be anything like, ooh, what specific company do you want to work for? The kids
right,
may not know, but you know, maybe easy questions for our kiddos, like, what do you feel like gives you energy? Maybe they're like, oh, I like playing with stuff. My nephew's like playing with Legos, and so likes building stuff on Minecraft. And so, okay, you like building stuff, you like, putting things together and see what comes around, and then just
yeah,
anything as simple as that, I think will do such amazing things for your next generation of leaders and CEOs and change makers. Yeah, just having these small conversations.
absolutely. And when I think about goal getters, right, goal diggers, and us being intentional about the next step, is
Mhm.
stepping together, whether you're 42 entering a new career, or
Yeah.
18 coming out of high school and you're going straight into the career field. I think that a lot of the considerations are similar, like we've said. And so I think that with your intentionality on being authentic, that those are the right type of conversations, you know?
Cam, before we move to wisdom in action, I want to know, how do people find you and work with you? Like, if they're listening to this episode and they're like, yes, I need a
Mhm.
career coach and
Mhm.
I need help with my resume, or I
Mhm.
have no idea what I want to do next.
Mhm.
And how do they get in touch with you? How does that work?
Yeah, so I am currently in the process of building out a business called the Career Cam. And it's still in its baby stages, but I would appreciate any love that I can get.
Yes.
And so I, yeah, can be reached out on LinkedIn at Cam Pham, or you can search me up, Cam Pham. I am revamping up my website, but once I finish, you can find me on thecareercam.com or thecareercam at on Instagram.
Beautiful.
And we will put all those links in our show notes so folks can click over to you and find you.
I
Absolutely.
appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Yes.
Of course. So every week we do a wisdom in action, which is taking the knowledge that you know, right, and putting it into action based on the dimension we're talking about. So for social wellness, what are you doing for yourself this week?
Yeah, so for social wellness, I am um, taking a girlfriend out for
Mm.
wedding venue shopping.
Ooh.
And I am surprising a friend with my partner for his birthday.
Oh,
So those are our social wellnesses. We're going to spend time with friends this weekend. And going back to my original labeler of a gold digger,
yes.
one of my goals this weekend is to really finish my website.
Mhm.
I've been, I've been really just trying to make it user intuitive and inviting, and just trying to think about my brands. But hopefully, I'm going to be able to, put everything in my mind and be able to execute that. So hashtag gold digger energy right there.
Ooh, I like
Right?
it.
So, Cam, if you're open to a little feedback, Shannon and I, we have
Mhm.
our workflow, and every week it says there's a little button that says website update, because it always needs to be updated.
Yeah,
So don't you worry about it being perfect. You're going to be
right.
working on it from here on out.
It's true.
Yeah, I know. One of my favorite quotes is, "It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be done."
Yes.
Yep.
It really helped me. Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
And we have a tendency as women often to want it to be perfect, or so nobody can say anything about it. And I don't think it's just women, but I think women especially, because we tend to be under so much scrutiny.
Mhm.
Scrutiny? I said that word completely wrong.
It's
And
fine.
so I just think about that. And that's what I work with my clients too, is, good enough. It's
Mhm.
like, get it done. And we can
Mhm.
always improve on it. We can always go for it. But if it doesn't get out there, nobody sees it.
Yeah.
And it is, I should knock on wood, but we've never had anybody come and say, oh, your website's horrible.
Right. I'll be open
It
to it if
may
they
after this
come
episode.
on the team and help us out. Yeah.
That's
We're
what
building the
Shannon would do.
teams. Build it, baby. Yes.
Exactly.
Shannon, what's your wisdom in action this week?
Oh, for social wellness, we are working on we're working on getting this stuff out. So I think my wisdom is in action is share more stories.
Mm,
Yeah. It's
mm,
been one of my favorite things to do through the press and the book is just getting these stories out to the people who they'll help.
I love
mm-hmm.
that.
Thank you.
Now I'm gonna have a hard time coming behind that one. That was
Comparison is the
good.
thief of joy. No
I
comparison.
know it, right?
Mhm.
Let's see, what is my wisdom in action this week? I think mine really, I'm gonna go old school and go simple and just connect.
Okay.
Like, I have some folks that I need to connect with, and it's just gonna be hashtag connect.
Beautiful.
And yeah, because I'm going and doing some caregiving. I'm going out to a 4-year-old birthday party, which y'all,
Yes.
let me tell y'all.
Mm.
Let me tell you, they're turning 4. So my sister is throwing a golf party
Hmm.
called Party, because they're 4. There's going to
Funny.
be so many puns at this party.
I love
Um,
puns.
but I am building we're doing a putt-putt golf course, and I am building the whole that's themed around dinosaurs.
Okay.
So I can't wait to share pictures. I am
Mm,
ridiculously excited about how cool
that's pretty
this
cool.
putt-putt course is going to be.
So
So,
each one has a different theme.
mhm.
Oh, I like
Mhm.
that. Okay.
Right? And if I think if I've got it right, there's dinosaurs, there's construction,
Mm,
there's names, and there's
mm,
volcanoes because those
okay.
are kind of the things they're into right now. So
They're gonna
they're
go crazy.
twins, Cam. They're twins, and they are just they're awesome
Yeah,
and
that's pretty
fun.
impressive. I feel like you should take some pictures and
Yeah.
maybe somebody's going to want for you to, replicate the same work.
Right.
Hello.
Well, my sister. This is my sister and her vision and her dream. And I'm going in for moral support, and I'm Tia. I'm their aunt. So I get to come in and give them everything they want, and
I love that.
that's my role in this situation. So I get to connect. That's the other part of my social wellness this week, y'all, is, I get to be Tia. So
Mhm.
that's the fun part of this job and those
I love
family
that.
connections. So
Yeah. I'm
We're
super
doing a lot
excited you
of,
get
yeah.
go
I was
ahead,
just I
Kimberly.
was just trying to say we're doing a lot of celebration this weekend, all of us.
Yeah.
right,
We're celebrating stories, we're celebrating
right,
people, birthdays, weddings. I love
Yes.
that.
right.
Yes.
It really is a good time. And I just want to give a shout out too to all our kids who have gone back to school, because here
Mhm.
in Georgia, school started, y'all. Like
And the
I looked
teachers.
up and I'm
Yeah.
like, what is happening? Like there are
Really.
buses, there are kids, there are whoa, what is
Mm.
happening here? Um so
So glad I'm
um
graduated. Yes. But
right,
thank you. I
right.
was thinking about the teachers earlier. Yes.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for the teachers and everybody who's putting in work, definitely
Right.
covering this school year.
And our teachers who it's the second day and you've decided that you're done, reach out to Cam.
Mhm.
She's a great career coach and can
Right.
get you hooked up with another
Hello, exit
another
plan.
vision,
I
another
heard that part.
line, right?
Mhm. Yes.
Cam, thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you for your
Yes.
work in the world and sharing your story with us. And
Mhm.
we are delighted to be connected.
Yes.
The honor is mine. Oh my gosh. I love being able to share my story and being able to just open up about, my upbringing and
Yeah.
place my identity in the workplace. So
Hmm.
thank you so much. And if one person listening
Hmm.
to this podcast can at least feel inspired to be themselves and to bring their authentic place to work or in their own personal lives, and I think we all, yeah, succeeded and did a great job and can call it a day.
Right.
So
Yes.
just
Call
need to
it
Thank you
plant
so
done.
the
much.
seed.
Mhm.
Exactly. We just need
Mm.
to plant the seed. I'm not out here trying to have people change their names. That's
Mhm.
not the point.
It might
I
happen though. Send her a letter if you change your name
good.
because of Cam Lam. Send her a letter.
Yeah, I would love to hear. Yes, please
Yeah.
reach out to me. Let me
Right.
know if you ended up transitioning. But I'm not here to have people change their names.
Right.
I'm just here to have people reflect and
Yeah.
think about
Mhm.
how they can be more themselves and be better. And keep your name or don't. We're
Right.
all here for each other. So thank you so much,
Mm.
Christine and Shannon, for letting
You're
me be a
welcome.
part of your podcast.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon.
So
So good.
fun,
Yes.
right? So good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Social
And there's
wellness.
just so much to think about, right? There's so
Yes.
much to think about. I loved her story. Love the work she's doing in the world. We may have to have her back because, like, I kind
I
of
think
wanted to
so.
know, like, how did she get into being a career
I think
coach?
we have her in the community, but we'll talk about it later. I think,
Right? Have her
you
come
know,
teach some stuff. Wouldn't that be
exactly. Yep.
fun?
Stay plugged
Oh my
in.
gosh,
Yep. That's what I thought, but
absolutely.
we talk about it later.
All
But
right.
I love it.
So, anything we need to lift up before we close out episode 124? Is there
Anything we
anything
need to
coming
lift
up
up.
soon that folks need to know about?
No, I would just, if you're keyed into what we're doing, make sure that you follow us on social media, like and
Mhm.
subscribe to the podcast so you get the latest updates. Again, we've been talking about it a little bit on this episode, but we're about to publish this audiobook. And I know that this year's been crazy. We're talking about all the things that have happened, right? So if you hadn't got to the book, we still love you. It's okay. Listen to the audiobook. Listen to it while you're doing all the other stuff. And you want to hear these stories, and we have more coming out for you. So stay tuned.
Right. And
Yeah.
you want to be connected, right?
Yeah.
Connected to our expert guests on the podcast, connected
Mhm.
to our authors. Y'all, there is some amazing, incredible good work going on in this world. And when things get tough, I always look for the beauty and the helpers.
Yeah.
And I'm so delighted to be connected. And thank you, Shannon, for another great week.
Yes.
I'm grateful to be in partnership with you.
Yes.
And
Same to you.
yeah,
Yes.
good
Okay,
stuff.
guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us for season 14, Social Wellness. We will be back live at 5. In the meantime, excuse me, live at 5 next week. In the meantime, be well, be wise, be whole. We'll talk to you soon.